The phone I buried 6 months ago just texted me last night. I know how that sounds. Ridiculous. Impossible. Like some cheap horror story you scroll past at 3 in the morning and laugh about in the comments. But you're here, listening, which means some part of you is curious and maybe a little afraid. Good. You should be, because this isn't just a ghost story. And if you think it's only about a broken phone clawing its way back from the dirt, you're wrong. It's about something older, something I never should have touched. The message came at 2:37 a.m. My new phone lit up on the nightstand, that soft blue glow that always makes the shadows in a room seem sharper, heavier. I thought it was just another spam notification or some drunk friend texting me at the wrong hour. But when I squinted at the screen, my throat locked up. The sender's name was simple. Familiar. My old phone. I froze, staring at it, half expecting the name to vanish if I blinked too hard. But it didn't. And the message sat there, waiting. Why did you leave me here? Just 6 words. No number. No thread history. Just that. Now, I don't care how skeptical you are. Phones don't text you from 6 feet underground. Phones don't remember your touch after you've abandoned them. Phones don't accuse you like a scorned lover. I wanted to believe it was some glitch, some cruel prank. But deep down, even before I opened the rest of the conversation, I knew better, because I buried that phone myself. I felt the dirt caking under my nails, the weight of the earth pressing down over the plastic shell. I left it there for a reason I'll get to. And yet, last night, it reached back out. If you're listening, you're already in deeper than you realize. That message wasn't just meant for me. It was meant for anyone who dares to hear what happened next. So, if you're brave enough, I'll tell you everything, from the very beginning. But don't say I didn't warn you. Because once you know why I buried that phone, you'll wish you never heard this story at all. Before all of this, before the texts, the dirt, and the nightmares, life was painfully ordinary. The kind of ordinary you don't even notice until something comes along to shatter it. Back then, my biggest problem was whether I should upgrade my phone. Pathetic, right? That old phone of mine had been through hell with me. The screen was spiderweb from one too many late-night drops. The battery barely held a charge, and sometimes it would freeze for minutes at a time, like it was holding my life hostage until I gave it attention. But I kept it anyway. We all do that, don't we? We treat our devices like relationships. Broken, frustrating, toxic, but somehow too familiar to let go. I used to joke that my phone knew me better than I knew myself. It had every bad selfie, every late-night search I'd never admit to, every message I sent when I was drunk or desperate. It had pieces of me I didn't want anyone else to see. But eventually, even sentimentality has its limits. When the thing started shutting off randomly in the middle of phone calls, usually at the worst possible times, I caved. I walked into one of those sterile, too bright phone shops and let a stranger convince me that I needed the newest model. Faster, sleeker, shinier. That's what they said. The future in my pocket. And for a while it felt good. There's something intoxicating about holding a brand new phone, smooth glass without a single fingerprint, apps loading instantly, camera sharp enough to make you believe your skin is actually that clear. For a few weeks, I told myself I was free. But here's the thing nobody talks about. When you get a new device, you also inherit a kind of amnesia. Sure, all your photos and messages transfer over, but it's not the same. Something gets lost in the migration. The old phone becomes a relic, still heavy with everything you don't want to think about, but suddenly useless. And mine was heavier than most. I don't talk about it much, but there was something tied up in that phone. Memories I wanted gone. Mistakes I couldn't look at anymore. You ever scroll through your gallery late at night and stumble on something that makes your stomach drop? Yeah, imagine an entire device like that. I told myself I'd just keep in a drawer, let it die quietly. But every time I opened that drawer, I felt it staring at me, humming faintly even when it wasn't charging, like it wanted me to pick it back up, like it wasn't ready to let me go. So one night, after a couple of drinks and a bad spiral of thoughts, I did something stupid, something no sane person does. I took the phone outside, walked past the streetlights into the edge of the woods behind my building, and dug a hole. The dirt was damp, clinging to my hands. I pressed the phone into the soil like a coffin, packed the earth tight, and stood there for a long time after, listening. It felt wrong. Final, but wrong. I thought burying it would bury my memories too. But memories don't stay dead. The night I buried the phone didn't feel like a decision. It felt like a compulsion. Like something had been whispering at the back of my skull for weeks, waiting for me to give in. It was late, later than I usually stay awake. The kind of hour where the world feels suspended, like even the air is holding its breath. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the cracked, lifeless screen. It hadn't turned on in days, but somehow I felt like it was watching me, mocking me. So I grabbed it. I didn't even grab a jacket. Just a phone in one hand, a rusted garden trowel in the other, and bare feet crunching over gravel as I stepped outside. The woods behind my building aren't exactly dense, but at night, even the smallest trees look skeletal, their branches like fingers reaching down to grab me. The farther I walked, the quieter the world became. My footsteps sank into damp earth. The streetlights vanished behind me, and the silence thickened until I could hear my own heartbeat. I chose a spot where the ground dipped slightly, shadowed by a crooked oak. The trowel hit the dirt with a dull scrape, and I started digging. Each scoop made the soil cling to the blade, dark and wet like it didn't want to be disturbed. My fingernails filled with grit when I pushed harder, desperate to get the hole deep enough. By the time it was ready, my palms were raw, and I was breathing harder than I should have been. The phone felt heavy in my hand, not physically, but in the way a guilty secret feels when you hold it too long. I lowered it in, and that's when it happened. I swear to you, the screen flickered. Just once, faint, like an old bulb struggling to stay alive. I froze, the phone resting in the soil, my hand still under it. For a second, I thought I heard something, a faint hum, static maybe, like the buzz you get when you put a speaker too close to a microphone. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of my mind, but the sound followed me as I piled dirt on top, each handful muffling the glow until it was gone. And then, silence. Complete, unnatural silence. When I finally patted the soil flat, I pressed my ear to the ground. Don't ask me why. Morbid curiosity, maybe the need for closure. That's when I thought I heard it. A single vibration deep beneath the surface, like the faint rattle of foam buzzing against wood. I ripped my head back and stumbled away, dirt clinging to my arms, my clothes, even my lips when I gasped too sharply. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd vomit. But nothing moved. The grave was still. I stood there for longer than I cared to admit, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But the woods stayed quiet. Eventually, the adrenaline wore off, and I convinced myself it was stress, paranoia, maybe even withdrawal from having a screen in my hand 24/7. So I left it. I walked back home, shoved the trowel in the corner of my closet, and took the longest shower of my life. Watching the soil swirl down the drain, I kept waiting for that faint buzz to come back, echoing in the pipes in my skull. But it didn't. Not that night, anyway. For a while, I pretended the whole thing was done. I even bragged to myself about how symbolic. It was like I'd staged my own ritual to cut ties with the past. I went back to scrolling on my new phone, back to work, back to ignoring the gnawing feeling in my chest. I thought I'd won, but the dead don't stay buried forever, and neither do the things we bury with them. It was a Tuesday night when the first message came through. I was half asleep, drooling into my pillow, the blue glow of my new phone pulsing on the nightstand like it was calling me back from whatever shallow dream I was drowning in. I groaned, rolled over, and grabbed it, already planning to curse out whoever thought texting at 2 in the morning was okay. But then I saw the name. My old phone. Not a number, not a contact, just that label. The exact one I'd saved it under when I first switched devices before I buried it in the dirt. I sat up so fast the room tilted. My first thought was some kind of weird sync issue, maybe a cloud error or one of those ghost contacts that sometimes pop up when you transfer phones. But when I opened the message thread, my stomach clenched. Why did you leave me here? I stared at it, waiting for the punchline. Spam, maybe? Some new scam designed to scare people, but no link followed. No request for money. Just that one lonely question. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I shut the screen off and shoved the phone under my pillow like a kid hiding from monsters. But the next night, it happened again. This time the message appeared without the notification sound. just waiting for me when I unlocked the screen. It's dark down here. My hands trembled so hard I almost dropped the phone. I tried to steady my breathing, convince myself it was a prank. Maybe someone had cloned my SIM card, hacked into something. But the name my old phone, that wasn't something anyone could have guessed. I never told anyone. And then came the third message. You can't ignore me forever. That one made me jump so badly, I actually said out loud, "Who the hell is this?" The phone buzzed instantly. You know who I am. I sat there in the blue glow, my heart slamming against my ribs, sweat trickling down my back. Against every rational instinct, I typed a reply. Me, this isn't funny. Who is this? The dots appeared. You know the ones. That endless, taunting ellipsis that tells you someone is typing, even when you wish they'd just stop. Then the reply came. You buried me. I dropped the phone onto the sheets like it was burning my hand. My chest tightened, every nerve screaming that this was wrong, impossible, but there was on the screen, glowing like a wound. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening for vibrations under the floorboards. I kept telling myself I was dreaming, that I'd wake up, that nothing this surreal could be real. But the text didn't stop. The next morning, when I checked my notifications, there were 5 new messages. It's cold. The dirt tastes like rust. I can't breathe. Why won't you answer it? You think you're safe. That last one made my skin crawl. I forced myself to reply again, fingers shaking so badly, I kept hitting the wrong keys. Me, if this is a prank, I swear to God. God can't hear you. The breath went out of me in a rush. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot, like the walls were pressing in. That day at work, I couldn't focus. Every buzz on my phone made me flinch. Every notification sent adrenaline flooding through me. People noticed. One coworker joked that I looked like I'd seen a ghost. If only it were that simple. That night escalated. I was brushing my teeth when the phone buzzed from the counter. With toothpaste still foaming in my mouth, I leaned over and read the script. I know what you did. I spat, wiped my mouth, and picked up the phone with shaking hands. Me, what do you want? The dots appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. I won out. I nearly dropped it. My chest was tight, every instinct screaming to turn it off, throw it in water, smash it to pieces. But the worst part wasn't the words. It was the photo that followed. A grainy, low-light image of my bedroom. My bed, my desk, my phone, this phone, resting on the counter where I stood. Taken from the floor. Taken from below. I stumbled back, the toothbrush clattering into the sink. My knees hit the cabinet, and for a second I thought I was going to be sick. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a prank. It wasn't just a hack. The worst part wasn't that the phone was responding. It was that it knew things I never typed, things I never said out loud, and somehow it was watching me. By the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. Sleep was impossible, food tasted like cardboard, and every vibration from my phone sent me scrambling like a rat in a trap. So I decided to do the only thing that made sense. I'd go back to the spot, back to the grave I dug. I told myself that if I uncovered the phone, if I held it in my hands and proved it was still there, I'd finally have my explanation. Hack, glitch, prank, whatever. Anything but the alternative. The woods looked different this time. Smaller, somehow, as if the trees were leaning closer, pressing us. I carried a flashlight and the same rusted trowel, my sneakers sinking into damp ground as I retraced my steps. When I found the crooked oak, my stomach dropped. The dirt was disturbed. Not much, just enough. A subtle dip in the soil, as if something had shifted underneath. The kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't looking for it, but I dropped to my knees, heart pounding, and started to dig. The soil was wetter than before, clinging to the blade in my hands. Worms squirmed between my fingers as I clawed deeper, faster, desperate to feel the cold edge of plastic against my skin. But never came. I dug until my arms ached, until the hole was wider than before, until I was panting in the silence of the trees. But the phone wasn't there. The dirt had been moved. Something had been taken. I sat back, gasping, mud streaked across my arms and face. My flashlight beam trembled over the empty hole. My brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe I buried it in the wrong spot. Maybe an animal dug it up and carried it off. Maybe I'd imagined the whole thing, some stress-induced breakdown where I only thought I'd buried it. But no, I remembered the way the soil felt, clumping under my nails. I remembered the vibration I swore I heard beneath the ground. I hadn't imagined it, and now it was gone. I filled the whole back in with shaking hands, as if that would fix anything, as if I could stuff the truth back into the earth. By the time I stumbled back to my apartment, I was filthy, exhausted, and no closer to answers. For the first time, I locked my phone in the bathroom cabinet before bed. I told myself I'd disconnect for the night, give my brain a break. That if I just ignored it long enough, the problem would go away. And for a few hours, it worked. The silence was almost comforting. I even dozed off, the first real sleep I'd gotten in days. But then, at 3:11 a.m., a sound pulled me out of the haze. A faint buzz, not from the cabinet, not from the counter, from under my bed. I froze, every muscle locked, listening as it buzzed once, then again. The sound was unmistakable, the exact rattle of a phone vibrating against wood. I wanted to convince myself it was in my head, a dream, a trick of exhaustion. Slowly, with my heart hammering, I reached for the new phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up immediately, and there it was. A new message. You dug me up. My throat closed. My vision swam. And then another text followed, the words hitting harder than anything before. I'm closer now. If I'd stopped here, maybe I'd still be safe. Maybe if I'd thrown the phone out the window, smashed it to pieces, run screaming into the night, I wouldn't be where I am now. But I didn't. I read the message again, and again, and against every instinct of survival, I waited for the next one. At first, the texts were unsettling because they existed at all. But soon, they became unbearable because of what they contained. It started innocently, if you can even call it that. A message popped up the morning after the "I'm closer now" text. Blue hoodie, drawer, bottom left. I froze. That was true. My favorite hoodie, one I hadn't worn in months, was folded in the bottom left drawer of my dresser. I hadn't told anyone. Nobody had been inside my apartment in weeks. I ignored it, told myself it was coincidence, a lucky guess. Then, an hour later, another message. Your scar. You still touch it when you're nervous. My stomach turned to ice. Because I do. A thin scar on my wrist from when I fell off my bike at 12. Something no one notices. Something I never posted about, never shared. The text grew more invasive, burrowing deeper into me. Old memories surfaced in them like rock rising to the top of water. Remember when you buried the hamster in the garden and lied to your mom about how it died? Your dad never forgave you for breaking his watch. He just never said it. You think she left you because of her. But it was you. Reading them felt like having my insides turned out. I deleted them, but they came back. Always. And then came the photos. The first one was blurry, as if taken through dirty glass. It was of me, sitting at my kitchen table, head in my hands. The timestamp? 2 minutes before I received it. Another photo arrived the next night. Me sleeping, my mouth half open, blanket pulled to my chin. The angle was wrong, though, like it was taken from beneath the bed. I smashed my lamp, trying to see if anyone was in the room. Nothing. Just me. And the worst part wasn't the invasion. It was the sound, because the texts weren't just on my phone anymore. I started to hear them. Faint whispers at first, like someone murmuring behind a door. I'd be washing dishes, and I'd swear I heard the words from the latest text breathe just behind my ear. I'd turn, soap dripping from my hands, but the room would be empty. The whispers got bolder, louder, until sometimes when the message came through, I heard it twice, once from the phone and once from the dark corner of my apartment. Have you ever had a ringtone stuck in your head that won't stop? Now imagine hearing it, faint and tinny, from inside your walls at night. That high, chirping melody that shouldn't exist in the real world. I pressed my ear to the plaster, and there was muffled static and the faint buzz of a vibration, as if a phone were trapped inside. And it wasn't just me. I started noticing the same sound when I passed other people on the street. A ringtone I didn't recognize, but one that made their eyes flick nervously toward their pockets. Once on the train, a woman sitting across from me pulled out her phone and glanced at it, her face draining of color. She caught me staring. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but she shoved the phone back in her bag and looked away. That's when it hit me. It wasn't just me. There were others. The shadows confirmed it. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch glimpses of figures in my apartment, reflections in the black screen of my TV, silhouettes standing just behind me in the mirror. But they weren't human. Their outlines were warped, as if static from an old television had taken form. Their heads tilted in perfect rhythm with a faint buzz that now seemed to pulse through every wall, every outlet. And sometimes, when I was half asleep, I swore I heard multiple voices whispering at once. A chorus of faint, broken tones, like 1,000 muted ringtones overlapping. It was no longer just about my phone. It was about something larger, something that had been waiting for me to connect to it. A network, a hive, a graveyard of devices that had been buried, abandoned, discarded, but not forgotten. The messages kept coming. Some are mundane, almost conversational. Hungry, lonely, turn on the light. But others were cruel, mocking, as if my own thoughts were being spat back at me. You think ignoring me will help. You can't block me. We're already inside. And maybe the scariest message of all came one night at 4:12 a.m. as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. This isn't about you. You're just the opening. The opening to what? I didn't know. And I wasn't sure I wanted to. But I had to. That's when I turned to the only place left that might make sense of it. Online. When you're haunted, your first instinct isn't to call the cops. Try explaining to them that your phone is texting you from its own grave, and how you end up in it. So I did what anyone in denial does. I went online. At first, it was casual searching, keywords like haunted phone glitch, buried phone still texting, and phantom ringtones. Predictably, all I found were dumb, creepypasta stories and prank videos. The kind that rake in millions of views because people love scaring themselves before bed. But then, buried in the clutter, I found something different. It was an old thread on a forum that looked like it hadn't been updated in years. The site itself was bare bones, almost broken, like it had been left to rot. Black background, white courier text, no ads, no avatars. The thread was titled, "Dead Tech That Won't Die." I clicked, expecting the usual nonsense. But the post felt real. One user wrote, "My brother's phone rang during his funeral. We thought someone put it in the casket as a joke. A week later, my mom got a text from him. Just one word, cold. Another. Buried my ex's phone after she died in an accident. It calls me every night at 3:15. Same ringtone. I stopped answering, but the calls didn't stop. Last night, I heard it vibrating under my floorboards." And another. Not all phones die. Some remember. I scrolled for hours. Every story had small details that echoed my own. Whispers in the dark, phantom ringtones, text messages that knew too much. Some people describe digging up graves only to find the phone gone. Others claimed they'd seen things, figures made of static, lingering in doorways or reflected in black screens. Most of the accounts ended abruptly, the way unfinished sentences trail off mid-thought. No follow-ups, no explanations, just silence. One post, though, stood out. The username was Signal Lost, and the timestamp was from only a few months ago. Recent compared to the rest. The message was short, but it chilled me. If your phone texts you after death, never reply. That's how it gets in. No elaboratio. No warning about what it was. Just that one rule. I tried to message them, but the account was deleted. That should have been enough to scare me off. To shut down my laptop, smash my SIM card, and pretend none of this ever started. But the thing about warnings is they never feel like they're meant for you. They always sound like someone else's problem. And besides, I was desperate. I needed answers. I went deeper, following half-broken links into forums that didn't show up on Google anymore, places people whispered about as the digital underground. The dark web was a blur of rumors, each one more insane than the last. Some claimed that devices, once buried, could act like anchors. Others spoke of the network of the forgotten, where abandoned tech reconnected in the soil, forming something larger. But no matter how wild the theories got, one warning kept surfacing. Never text back. Again and again, the same refrain. Different words, same rule. I told myself I'd remember that no matter how bad it got, I wouldn't break it. I really believed that, until the night the messages pushed me too far. The first few nights after reading those forums, I managed to hold the line. Every vibration, every chime I ignored. I'd wake up to dozens of missed texts, the same pleading refrain. Why won't he talk to me? You buried me. Don't you miss me? The messages weren't just creepy, they were suffocating. Like someone breathing against the back of my neck, only I couldn't turn around. I kept telling myself, never reply. That's the rule. But desperation is a funny thing. It doesn't come in all at once. It seeps in drip by drip until you're drowning without realizing it. It happened on a Tuesday. I was exhausted from not sleeping, jittery from too much coffee, my nerves frayed raw. My phone buzzed and I glanced down, half on autopilot. The message said, I can see you right now. That stopped me cold. It wasn't vague. It wasn't the same recycled guilt trip text. It was direct, present tense. I hesitated, my thumb hovering. My heart hammered so loud I could feel in my teeth. Finally I tapped. The image was grainy, dark, full of static glare. But the angle was unmistakable. It was my kitchen, my back, hunched over the sink. Taken just seconds earlier. From the floor, from beneath me. I dropped the phone. It clattered across the tile, the photo still glowing up at me. I wanted to run, to smash it, but my body wouldn't move. The phone buzzed again. Why did you bury me? I was still alive. I screamed back at the empty kitchen. You're not alive. The phone vibrated harder, as if mocking me. More messages streamed in, one after the other, filling the screen. Don't lie. I remember everything. I'm under you. I snatched the phone and hurled it against the wall. The case split, the battery slid out, and the screen flickered black. Relief lasted all of 5 seconds. Then, in the silence, I heard it. That faint, muffled ringtone. The one I tried to forget. The one that should have been buried with the old phone. It was coming from the ground outside. From 6 feet under. My blood went cold. Because here's the part one didn't tell you earlier. When I buried that phone, I didn't bury it in some random patch of dirt. I buried it in the small strip of earth right beneath my bedroom window. And now, the soil was calling back. The first time I heard it, I told myself it was the wind. A trick of the night. A creak of wood. Anything but what it really was. That muffled ringtone. Faint. Distorted. As if the earth itself were humming. I stood frozen by my window, staring down at the patch of dirt where I'd buried the phone. Moonlight cut across the yard in jagged streaks. The soil looked undisturbed, perfectly still, but the sound didn't stop. Ring, ring, ring. Every hair on my arm stood up. I backed away, whispering to myself, it's impossible. The phone is dead. It's smashed. It's gone. And then movement. The dirt shifted. Just a tremor at first, a ripple across the soil like something crawling underneath. I couldn't breathe. The ringtone cut off. Silence. Then, from the darkness, came the vibration. Deep, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I stumbled back. My foot caught the coffee table and sent it crashing over. The noise echoed through the house, but I didn't care anymore about being quiet. My eyes were locked on the ground outside, because the soil was rising. Mounds bulged upward, crumbling in slow motion, as though something beneath was pressing, pushing, clawing its way free. And then the buzzing started again. Not from one spot, but from everywhere. The walls, the floorboards, even my chest seemed to vibrate with it. The ringtone bled into static, a chorus of broken signals. And through the noise, voices. Faint, distorted, dozens of them, layered on top of each other. Answer me. You left us. We remember. We're not gone. I slammed my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The voices weren't coming from outside. They were inside. In the walls. In my head. My phone lit up on the floor where I'd thrown it earlier. Screen cracked, battery half hanging out, yet somehow glowing. Text poured in so fast the notifications blurred together. Come outside. See us. Date. I screamed. What do you want from me? The phone buzzed so hard it skittered across the tile toward me. I backed away, but the screen lit up again with a single photo. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I should. But my eyes locked onto it anyway. It wasn't my kitchen this time. It was my yard. The photo showed the patch of dirt under the window. Only in the picture, the soil wasn't still. It was torn open, and something pale was pushing up through the earth. A hand, thin, filthy, fingernails jagged and cracked. I dropped the phone again, my stomach heaving. But before I could move, before I could even scream, the ground outside answered me. The hand was real. One line, just 6 words. I'm not on the ground anymore. And the worst part? It was followed by another. I'm behind you. When the sun rose that morning, I thought it was over. The air was still. The ground outside lay smooth, untouched, as if nothing had happened. My neighbors carried on with their routines, walking dogs, mowing lawns, blissfully unaware of the nightmare that had unfolded just a few feet from where they slept. I convinced myself it was a breakdown, sleep deprivation, paranoia, anything but the truth. For weeks, I held on to that lie. I scrubbed the dirt from under my nails. I replaced the shattered furniture. I bought a new phone, one fresh out of the box, still wrapped in plastic. I even switched providers, as though swapping a SIM card could somehow cut me free from whatever had attached itself to me. And for a while, it worked. No stati, no whispers, no texts. I started sleeping again, eating again, smiling again. I told myself I was safe. But deep down, I knew safety was temporary. It wasn't gone. It was waiting. I learned to live with the tension, like a rope drawn tight around my chest. Some nights, I thought I heard faint buzzing in the walls, but I drowned it out with music. Other times, a shadow by the window seemed to linger too long, but I told myself it was the streetlight. Denial became my survival. Until last night, I was lying in bed, scrolling aimlessly through social media while my new phone buzzed. The tone was different, clean, digital, unmistakably new. But the name on the notification made my stomach turn to ice. Unknown number. With trembling fingers, I opened it. One message. I'm not on the ground anymore. My breath stopped. I stared at the words until the letters blurred. My mind scrambled for rationality. Spam text, wrong number, a prank. But then, before I could even think, another bubble appeared. I'm behind you. I didn't want to look. I told myself if I didn't turn around, it wouldn't be real. But the air shifted, a pressure against the back of my neck. The faintest buzz like a vibration against my skin. I snapped my head around. Nothing. No shadow. No figure. Just the quiet hum of the house. But I knew better. It was still playing with me. I don't know how long I'll last. The rules I've pieced together from forums and fragments all say the same thing. Once you answer, once you acknowledge them, there's no escape. They follow. They remember. They wait. And now I've passed that point of no return. Maybe that's why I'm telling you this. Not for pity, not for sympathy, but as a warning. Because if it happened to me, it can happen to you. Phones don't die. They don't forget. They remember every hand that held them, every secret whispered through them, every moment they were buried in dirt or left to rot in drawers. And sometimes they want to be remembered back. So if you ever hear a vibration in the middle of the night, faint but insistent, coming from somewhere it shouldn't, don't answer it. Don't dig. Don't reply. Because once you do, they'll never stop calling. And if you're watching this, if you've ever had a text you couldn't explain, a call that came from a number that shouldn't exist, tell me. Leave a comment. Share your story. Maybe, just maybe, if we piece them all together, we can figure out how to survive this. Because my phone just lit up again. And the last text I got, just seconds ago, said this. Your turn.